Amen. A 6-year-old boy, separated from his mother in a supermarket, began to call frantically for Martha, Martha, Martha. See, that was his mother's name, and she came running to him quickly. But honey, she admonished, you shouldn't call me Martha. I'm mother to you. Yes, I know, he answered, but this store is full of mothers. Not only are we commanded to honor our mothers, it's also the sensible and loving thing for us to do. Many of us here today, wish we still had our mothers with us. But our memory is with us, and I wouldn't want my mother to come back from the place she's at. Neither would you. We've lost loved ones. They've gone on. Those that love Jesus have gone on to heaven. And I guarantee you, if I could actually talk to my mother, she would say, George Daniel, there's no way I'm leaving this place. You didn't know my name was George Daniel. If you love me, never use it. Our world is full of mothers, but we really have only one mother that's special, but there is a second one. That is the mother of our children. For us husbands, that's very, very precious, very special. But there's no one like our own mother, and no one can ever take our own mother's place. Today we're here to worship the Lord as well as to honor mothers. Mothers, grandmothers, even great-grandmothers. Now, I was just thinking about this. Do we have any mothers here this morning that we can honor her great-grandchildren? Is anyone that's got great-grandchildren? Raise your hand. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fantastic. Any mothers here that we can honor that has great-great-grandchildren? Put your hands up. We've got one. We're doing good. Are there any mothers here that have any great-great-great-grandchildren? Put your hand up. I knew I'd get to a spot sooner or later that no woman could put their hand up. Someone wrote, you turned into a mom when, and here's what it was. It'll be up here. And it's really little. I should have made 2 slides, so I'll read it for you. You automatically double knot everything you tie. You find yourself humming the Barney song as you do the dishes. You hear a baby cry in the grocery store and you start to gently sway back and forth. However, your children are either at school or they're long gone. They've grown up. You actually start to like the smell of strained carrots mixed with applesauce. You spend a half hour searching for your sunglasses only to have your teenager say, Mom, why don't you wear the ones you pushed up on your head? You are out for a nice romantic meal with your husband, enjoying some real adult conversation, when suddenly you realize that you've reached over and started to cut up his steak. And Ramey, you asked me if I had anything to pass out, and I said no, but I forgot I did, but not to the mothers. And that's just in my study, I left a stack of stuff that I wanted to have on the outside table. It's not on the screen because there's too many, but things our mothers taught us. And this is not original with me. I gleaned this and I loved it. My mother taught me to appreciate a job well done. If you're going to kill each other, do it outside. I just finished cleaning. My mother taught me about religion. You better pray that will come out of the carpet. We had a couple of these last night in the mother and daughter banquet. What a time. My goodness, almost 70 people there. And it was just a phenomenal program. Thank you, ladies. Millie, Tanya, Jerry, and all those that helped you. I know Daryl and Ramey stayed to help do some cleanups. And my wife, as I got her in the car, she said, aren't you going to stay? I said, nope. I normally do, though. She knows that. My mother taught me about time travel. If you don't straighten up, I'm going to knock you into the middle of next week. My mother taught me logic. Because I said so, that's why. My mother taught me foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident. I was in an accident. First thing my mother asked me when she got to the hospital when I was a teenager, Danny, you can figure the rest of it out. My mother taught me irony. Keep crying, and I'll give you something to cry about. My mother taught me about the science of osmosis. Shut your mouth and eat your supper. I heard that one too. My mother taught me about stamina. You sit there until all that spinach is gone. My mother taught me about weather. This room of yours looks like as if a tornado went through it. My mother taught me the circle of life. I brought you into this world and I can take you out. My mother taught me about behavior modification. Stop acting like your father. My mother taught me about envy. There are millions of less fortunate children in this world who don't have wonderful parents like you do. My mother taught me about anticipation. Just wait until your dad gets home. My mother taught me about receiving. You're going to get it when you get home. And can I just stop here? If you've got children, don't whip them in public. Don't spank them even in public. But make them a promise. You will be disciplined when we get home. And then fulfill that promise. Every time. Never let it slide. A preacher friend of mine from Red Key, this has been quite a few years ago, but he spanked his son Scott in a department store. When he got home, a state trooper, a county sheriff, a city police, and the Child Protective Services was there and took their, I think he was 4 or 5, Scotty away from him. And there was a thing he could do. They took him into jail. And he said, well, I'm a pastor. I pastor this Nazarene church right here. And he had to get an attorney. The ordeal was beyond belief. Fortunately, he had no red marks and no welts. Now, we used to tease my father after we had all grown up and went on our own way, and he said, Dad, you'd be getting out of prison about now. All right, let's go on. That wasn't part of this. My mother taught me medical science. If you don't stop crossing your eyes, the wind will change and you will stay like that. My mother taught me how to become an adult. If you don't eat your vegetables, you'll never grow up. My mother taught me genetics. You act just like your father. My mother taught me about my roots. Shut the door behind you. Do you think you were born in a barn? My mother taught me wisdom. When you get to be my age, you'll understand. Boy, there's a lot of truth in that. My mother taught me about justice. One day, you'll have kids, and I hope they turn out just like you. That was in last night's program, too. On Mother's Day, we can't say enough good things about our mothers and about every mother, but we'll try. It's going to be in Proverbs and Ephesians. Ephesians 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. Now, I took that and just put the Amplified up too, just to show you how much broader that is. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. That is, accept their guidance and discipline as His representatives. For this is right, for obedience teaches wisdom and self-discipline. Honor, esteem value as precious, your father and your mother, and be respectful to them. This is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may have a long life on earth. So, for all of the mothers here this morning, and even those that will be watching this on our website, DecaturGraceFellowship.org, Happy Mother's Day. So really, what does a mother do? She works with her hands. The boy got his first job. As he was boasting about the amount of work he did, he said, I get up at 5 a.m. and have my breakfast. He was asked, does anyone else get up too? He replied, oh, yes. Mother gets up and fixes my breakfast and then fixes Dad's breakfast. And what about your dinner? The boy said. Oh, Mother fixes that too. Does your mother have the afternoon to herself? The boy replied, no, Mama cleans the house, looks after the other children, and then gets supper for me and Dad when we come home. Then we watch TV before we go to bed for just a little while. Well, what about your mother? What does she do? Well, the boy replied, Mama washes some clothes and irons the rest of the evening. And he said, well, do you get paid? Of course. Dad and I get paid. And what about your mother? Does she get paid too? The boy replied, Mother get paid? Mother don't get paid. She don't do no work. If anyone here today believes that moms don't work, then they really, really are deluding themselves. Proverbs 31, the chapter that everybody goes to for Mother's Day. Pastor I was talking to, he said, somebody told me, can you preach a Mother's Day message without using Proverbs 31? And he said, I honestly tried. I said, well, what happened? He said, I used Proverbs 31. When you get home, read it. I don't have it all put up here, but read the whole chapter of Proverbs 31. You see, she sows is found in verses 13, 19, and 22. She selects wool and works with eager hands. She shops, verse 15, bringing her food from afar. She cooks, verse 15. She provides food for her family. She gardens, verse 16. She plants a vineyard. Our text also says that mothers, in verse 15, get up while it is still dark to prepare food. Verse 18 says her lamp does not go out at night. Verse 27 says she watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness, meaning she isn't lazy. What's that old saying? Man works from sun to sun, but woman's work is never done. Father's Day is coming, fellas. Just hang loose. I was thinking about my own dear mother. I said this down in our Sunday school class this morning. My mother, she's enjoying sights and sounds that we can't even imagine. But I remember of the 5 children, I was number 3. I was right in the middle. I have an older brother, an older sister, a younger brother, and a younger sister. I tried to tell them that I was the cog that turned the whole wheel. They never did believe that. But I was the one of the 5 that brought Mom home flowers from the woods, gave her poison ivy and oak, because I mixed it in with the beautiful flower arrangement. But I never heard her complain. So we thank Mom for all their hard work. Secondly, she not only works with her hands, but she speaks with her mouth. In verse 26 of verse 31 of chapter 31 of Proverbs, she speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. When the preacher John Wesley was a student at Oxford University, he was shocked by the amount of drinking done by the students. Now, we're talking back in the 1800s. I wonder what he'd think about students in our day. After writing to his mother, Susanna Wesley, for her counsel, he received the following words. My dear son, remember that anything which increases the authority of the body over the mind is an evil thing. Great instruction. And I'm sure that Susanna Wesley, in fact, I've shared over the last several years some more of her instruction to her children. One of my favorite preachers that I have books in my study is G. Campbell Morgan. I just love that British preacher, and came to the States in the early 1900s. But he had 4 sons, and they all became ministers of the gospel and successful ministers. At a family reunion, a friend asked one of the sons, which Morgan is the greatest preacher? While that son looked at his father, he replied, Mother. Mother was the greatest preacher. Many mothers have done a lot of preaching to their children, whether they considered it preaching or not. So I say thank you, moms, for caring enough to tell what is the right thing for children to do. The third thing, she loves with her heart. She works with her hands. Thank God for that. But she loves with her heart. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. And that's verses 11 and 12. If a husband has full, complete confidence in his wife, then you know that she's a woman who loves her man and loves her family. An epitaph on a wife's tombstone written by her husband after 60 years of marriage read, "She always made home happy." That's love. When we were first married, we got married very, very, very young. Not something I would advise, but and we started having children very, very soon, which is not something I would advise. And I was going to college full-time and working part-time, and that's not something that I would advise. We had our first little girl, and we were very, 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 very poor, and we wouldn't let our parents know that we needed anything. Just wouldn't let them know. We struck out on our own. We was going to make it on our own. And my wife could take and make eggs in enough different ways, and she would be excited to where the kids would get excited about having eggs again. Am I right, Mrs. York? I got to be careful. If I say too much more, then I'm liable to hear her say no. But a grandmother was telling her granddaughter good night when the little girl said, "Mommy and Daddy are entertaining some very important people downstairs." "Well, you're right," the grandmother said. "But how did you know?" "Just listen," the little granddaughter said. "Mommy is laughing at all of Daddy's jokes." Brethren, where there's a lot of laughter in a home, you just know that something good is happening in that home. And of course, there needs to be laughter in a home. There's enough stress in this whole world. Home should be a safe place. Proverbs 17:22 said, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones." When there's a lot of laughter in a home, someone is putting out some good medicine. It also shows that there's a lot of love. A teacher at school put this question to little James in her math class. "James, suppose your mother," and you've heard this one before, but this is still, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest illustration. "James, suppose your mother made a cherry pie, and there were 10 of you at the table, your mother and father, and 8 children. How much of the pie would you get?" "A ninth," was his answer. No, James. Now pay attention. There are 10 of you in the home. Don't you know your fractions?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "I know my fractions, but I know my mother even better, and she'd say that she didn't want any pie." The unselfishness of a true Christian mother shows the heart of love for her family and is an example for her children. Thomas Edison once said, "I did not have a mother long, but she cast over me an influence which has lasted all my life. The good effects of her early training I can never lose. If it had not been for her appreciation and her faith in me at a critical time in my experience, I should never likely have become an inventor. I was always a careless boy, and with a mother of different mental caliber, I should have turned out badly. But her firmness, her sweetness, her goodness were potent powers to keep me in the right path. My mother was the making of me. The memory of her will always be a blessing to me, and I think many of us can say that about our own mothers." What a loving tribute to a blessed mother. Proverbs 31:28 says, "Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her." May God's richest blessings be upon every mother here today. And for those women that have never had children, I know that there's those that wanted to have children so bad and couldn't. Well, God bless you too. Do you realize that every wife that never could have any children, she can be a mother in Israel to every one of those children? Say, what in the world is a mother in Israel? A mother in Israel is someone that doesn't have children, that loves everybody else's children. And you know the good thing about that? You get to send them home. It's like being a grandparent without ever having any kids. It's really sweet. It's a great experience. Mothers who love their children couldn't have by loving those they come in contact and having an influence over if it wasn't because of God's grace that He's placed within their hearts. Blessings upon each one of you. Have a blessed and happy Mother's Day. Don't forget the meetings, the financial piece back in that corner, and VBS right up here. All right, let us pray. Father God, we